Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Zoobox Goes to the Movie. This is kind of a special episode. We're going to be doing this on the fly. Going to be watching live clips as we talk about the film. This is a subber request from loomazooma, who drops by on our Zoobox live streams often and has always thoughtful, interesting conversation. And they suggested that we do a live stream about Stalker, and in lieu of doing that, we're just going to do an episode. So Luma, I hope you see this, and thank you for the request. We always appreciate audience interaction. And anybody out there, if you have a specific request, you want to see Dan and I do something, you want to see Prophet and I do something, or Big Paul do something, or anybody else, or Mike, he's been on Zoobox Goes to the Movies a few times himself, just drop it in the comments, and we're more than happy to accommodate, especially when it comes to some fucking high art, baby. This is we're talking today about 1979's Stalker. The film was directed by Andrei Tarkovsky, written by Tarkovsky and the Stugatsky brothers. It's based on a novel called Roadside Picnic. It stars a bunch of Russian people. I'm not going to try to butcher their names. Show respect. And we're going to start off with the trailer. So if anybody at home is not familiar with the movie, maybe it'll intrigue you. You can stop the video, go watch the movie, and then come back, because this is going to be a spoiler-filled discussion. We are holding nothing back. Going to get into the themes, stories about how it was made, etc. So let's start with the trailer.
Зона — это очень сложная система ловушек, что ли. Но стоит тут появиться людям, как все здесь приходит в движение. Здесь исполнится ваше самое заветное желание. Самое выстраданное.
Well, there you have it. That's a provocative trailer.
Yeah.
Do you think that trailer captures the spirit of the movie? Because I was watching some other trailers and they were just like really kind of sell you a different movie. Because how do you sell a movie like this? You know what I mean? Like, how do you even advertise something like this? How do you get across like the experience of watching Stalker? You know?
I haven't watched any other trailers, so I can't comment on that. That trailer doesn't even.
Well,
I don't know. Like, I'll take your word for it, though. If you think this does this.
I think this one is the best one I have seen, because the other ones lean much more heavily on like the literal story, on like we're going to the zone. It's an unpredictable place. Like, it makes it seem much more like a James Cameron movie, like you're gonna watch like The Terminator or like or fucking.
But even there, they show some enough to make you think that. In even my opinion, just watching it now, I was going. They're kind of making it seem different than what it is. I mean, okay, what we're seeing in this particular trailer, and I haven't seen the others, but the themes that you are subjected to in this movie, I don't think are there. I think they're showing the conflict, the drama, right? That's what a trailer would do.
Yeah. But I thought it gives a sense of the tone of the film.
The tone, yes, but I could say the tone wise, but God, man, I don't know if anyone. I
Well, let me ask you just right off the bat, man, because this is probably the third time I've watched it all the way through, and then I watched like half of it this morning. This is your first time ever watching it. I'm very curious what your experience was watching it, and if you even would like it.
it's beautiful. Like that's like I remember like right when you texted me right when I basically started. I was about 20 minutes in. I'm like, it's just beautiful. It is beautiful. Man, that is. It's not even. The movie is 2 hours and 40 minutes. So first off,
yeah,
it's very slow. It's very grindy, but intentional, obviously. I just found myself constantly thinking, like trying to put the puzzle together as I'm watching it. I'm like, what the fuck? But then after, and this is how you know it's great cinema or great art, period. I kept going back to it in my head. That is the real trick of this movie, in my opinion. It's kind of like the first time you watch Inception or Tenet. Like it leaves you wanting to discover and like think about it. And I just got this unsettling view watching the movie of like all these religious themes kept popping up as I was watching it, which I think is intentional. There are some subtle ones and some that aren't so subtle, but I'd say I loved it. But it was a slow love. It was a nurturing love. The story doesn't give you everything right, like like when you're trying to fatten up a goose and they just stick it down your gullet and they just
it's not attempting to explain itself to you, but I do think if you were to revisit it and you were paying close attention, it's there. You just have to do a little legwork yourself. To me, like the parallel is like reading it's because it's like a philosophy tone piece to me, like in terms of its themes and what it's kind of exploring. It's like reading philosophy. It's work. Yeah. It's like school, but the joy of it is knowing it. And then what comes afterwards, it's the reflection. It's how you sit and just think about it. You think about these concepts and these ideas, and I have a very similar experience because I'm a big fan of philosophy, but I'm not going to lie and say I love reading philosophy. Philosophy is it's school, it's work, it can be a real drag sometimes. Granted, there's some writers that are better than others, but the joy of it is the knowledge that you get from it. It's the broad view. And then being able to think about it. And I think in terms of a cinematic experience, this is capital C cinema. This is capital A art. And in all of its pretentious permutations, you want to feel like that's pretentious? It is.
I don't feel like it's pretentious.
No, but that doesn't necessarily mean a negative thing.
Yeah.
It's very confident filmmaking. And it's a cinematic experience. It's not so like you couldn't read the script of Stalker and probably get really much out of it, right? Like, because it would just be philosophical ponderings. But
that's really what the movie shows to me. Is it's three different ideological perspectives.
Yeah, it's archetypes
clashing.
They're archetypes. It's literally the intelligentsia, the professor, and then the writer, the artist,
the mocking, and like, well, not just to mention the writer. The writer is like believes himself to be smarter than the scientist and smarter than the stalker, and he mocks the stalker and mocks the scientist for believing in like almost like a fantasy of what science. Like he's like, there's a scene where they're laying down because they do this all the time. This movie getting very close to the earth, and the professor's trying to go to sleep, and he's like, "You think you're such like a titan of intellect and this and that." And he's like, "But you're nothing more than just like a weak, like squabbling." And the guy's like, "I don't want to hear this." Like, like I don't. And then, because I don't want to get too deep into it, but I've noticed that like the writer is the non-believer. Like there is I am questioning authority.
Yes.
Like questioning the belief like of this.
Constantly in the movie, he's always the one that wants to go his own way, or will go first or whatever. He's the risk taker. He likes to go do things on his own terms.
Well, that's
the archetype of the artist, right?
Well, I think this movie comes down to lack of faith and arrogance, because the professor does the same thing when he has to go back for his backpack.
Yeah.
So the professor plays this. What is in this? And obviously, now it makes way more sense as to why he had to go back for the backpack and coming to the end of the film. He had a 20 kiloton bomb, and he believed that as a scientist, the faith of this existence of this particular room that could be used by all benevolent and awful people, or malevolent, right? Whatever.
Well, could use by both. It could be benevolent people or malevolent. Yeah.
And his job as the scientist was to eliminate it, was to take that away from everybody.
Yeah, because you can't trust people with hope. Like, I guess, like, to broaden it out before we get like that specific.
Sure.
Let's. I just want to say the stalker, I think, is supposed to represent kind of the working class, the everyman, the servant. He has a hard time. He actually dreams in sepia tone, which means he can't ever get his mind out of that authoritarian. Because I think there's parallels to the kind of living under a communist regime Russia and etc. And then, but what do you think the zone represents? Like, metaphorically, like, cause so they go from the movie starts in sepia tone and washed out colors, and then once they get into the zone, it's like the Wizard of Oz. Like,
I had a completely different opinion of the stalker.
Okay.
Like an immediate, and it wasn't immediate. This was more upon reflection afterwards. The stalker is more like Christ, guiding these two lost souls through these winding turns. You may be right, but I'm just saying, in my interpretation, the Christ-like of, or at least the individual trying to lead people to Christ, trying to lead them to faith. And there's a particular scene. There's a few times where the camera is panning over a stream, or I think the floor of the room in certain points. Like, it's just like this long drawn out, and you see an image of Christ, but right before that, it's the 30 pieces, like they're silver. So like it represents that 30 pieces of silver that Judas, paid, which is also emblematic of the professor paying him to go to the stalker's own self-destruction.
Yeah. I can buy that. Yeah.
Like, that's where I kind of fell on the stalker.
Well, the thing with the stalker is he's an interesting thing, because I think part of like one of the broad kind of thematic elements of the movie is this idea of a little bit of what does it mean to have your identity? Like, what gives you purpose in life, and is that purpose a good thing or a bad thing? Because I feel like a lot of what the stalker says is to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So they make mention about the zone. And they make there's little hints that the zone is actually supernatural and that there's a metaphysical quality to it. It's only a few times, but they do show a few things. Like what sticks out of my mind the most is when they're in the dunes, the sand dunes, and then the bird just disappears, and then it comes back and just disappears again, and then it lands. Like, it's showing you that reality is not fine. It's not like it's not a tangible thing like you experience like back home on the sepia tone world. So is the stalker actually manifesting his own reality in the zone to justify his existence and his job?
Well, I mean, they even question him.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
because he puts all of these ideas about what the zone is in their head, how dangerous it is, the traps, all this stuff. Even though we never see any of that, they just they get scared because the idea is inside of them. So they become afraid.
I kept getting the feeling watching this at those points where I was going, is he doing this as just to create some sort of artificial experience for them? Like, is this all artificial? Like, he is trying to, because they question him and his power when they're sitting outside the room and they're going, like, you have been making up all these fucking things that we've had to follow and all these rules, and nothing's happened.
Well, and that's the thing. That's the thing. Like, if they didn't follow the rules, would something happen? And nobody ever pushes it far enough to actually see, except I suppose you can make the argument the professor does. Because the professor is the first one to go backward. It kind of breaks the spell. And then after that, that's when there's a very extended sequence of them like trying to sleep. And like you had brought up before about the writer kind of antagonizing the professor. And then there's like a dream sequence. Here, I'll just put it on in the background while we talk. We don't have to actually like listen to it, but, and it's subtitled, so that works too. But
You're going to put the film on?
I'm just going to put just a little scene here. Oh, maybe not.
Can't do it, but
that's not letting me. Okay, whatever. But so there's that scene, but that scene follows the professor kind of breaking out of the paradigm a little bit. And then they all start questioning their roles in life and who they are and what is going on. And then there's another little hint about the manifestation quality of the zone. Where the fuck does that dog come from? The stalker dreams of the dog, and then the dog appears. And then
he does when
he's laying down in the stream, or by the stream rather. And they have that dream sequence, and he starts dreaming in sepia. He starts dreaming.
Yeah, but which time?
What do you mean? There's it's just like one long extended sequence that has that has that conversation with the professor and the writer, and then them trying to sleep and not being able to sleep and let me nap. And then the stalker's kind of off on his own, and he's like, he's just dreaming. He's coming in and out of sleep.
Yeah.
And part of it is the dog approaches him.
Well, I mean, but he's also been there a shit ton of times. Like, why would he have not seen this dog before too?
Well, because I don't think the movie is that literal. I just don't. I think it's like supposed to be another one of these like hat tips to like, if you believe it, like this place is what you. To me, the zone is infinite potential. It's freedom. But what does that mean? That could be a good thing. That could be a bad thing, right? Like depending on your discipline as a human being. And that's the whole thing when they go to the room. Okay, what the room doesn't really grant you a wish. What the room does is it gives you the thing that you desire most. And what that is a reflection of who you are as a person.
Like Porcupine, when he he may have wanted to go to the room to get his brother back.
Yes.
But he
ended up with a pile of money and killed himself.
Because he realized how terrible of a person he was.
Yeah. And that's why...
Which is also a reference to Judas.
Actually, yeah, for sure. And I think that's also another... That's why they don't actually go into the room. They do all that shit and they just sit at the threshold. Because none of them trust what they'll find in the room. They don't trust themselves enough. And they have, in a certain way, like you said... it is a little bit of the destruction of the hopeful nature of the stalker. Like, he wants to bring people so they can find themselves, so they can self-actualize, like metaphorically. Yeah. And he's kind of heartbroken that nobody wants to do it.
And that's where I kind of get this Christian element, and in a sense, this Christ-like figure leading people. Like, if you look at the room there in the trailer, you'll see a room that looks like a desert, basically, and it just reminds me of Christ walking through the desert, which he was visited by an eagle, like at one point, or some sort of bird-like creature in the form of Satan, or something to that effect. I remember, maybe I'm wrong, but I just know that there's enough in this movie to say this movie is more about how the corporate entities, the government will try to prevent you. Like if you look at the government not wanting them to go into the zone, which is, references, I imagine, the USSR, no God, no religion,
no
hope,
faith, no potential, no freedom, no self-actualization, no discovery.
While not being allowed to admit it out loud.
Well, because they make mention of it. Like I think it's the professor when they first go into the zone. He talks about it. He's like, and then they secretly started guarding the zone because nobody really they don't have a hard and fast explanation of what the zone is or how long it's existed or all of that stuff. It doesn't even get into that. It's just like, the state just doesn't want us to come in here.
Well, he does. I thought he does say something about it was 20 years.
Do
Like,
they
so
say 20 years?
I might be wrong. I remember the Stalker being like 20 years ago. This used to be with families or something. I could be wrong.
That's actually, I think you're right. Yeah. Okay.
I know he said something because, but I mean, it's really interesting how they film this too. How you're not really sure what role you're playing as the viewer sometimes.
Oh, it's awesome.
Like,
I love that how the point of view of like who
the professor
or who
when he's walking.
It's a great moment, and they talk about it. Jeff Dyer, I think, talks about it during that little supplement on the Criterion disc. Is that it's it's a push into that car with the corpse in it, and you think
and then everyone appears.
You think you're following the professor, but you're not. You're the camera, and it's actually telling you that you're a character.
Yes.
Like you're
supposed to partake.
You have a subjective view. There is no objective view of the zone. It's kind of brilliant, and it's really subtle, and that's why I said, like, this is fucking cinema, dog.
Well, because I was sitting there because I was like, God damn, he's about to go hang out with this dead body. Like, I was like, what the hell? And then all of a sudden he comes around. I was like, got me, dude. Like right there, like I knew. I think I knew at that point. But so the question is this: if he dreams in the sepia tone or the black, which I've heard people reference it black and white or whatever, does that mean everything back in the quote unquote Russia like area? Is that not real?
No, it is real. No, what I'm saying is, I think what it is, it's a window into his worldview, who he is as a person, why he can't or won't rather go into the room. He follows rules. He's uncomfortable with the freedom that the zone kind of offers people, and he doesn't really understand it. I mean, like the Stalker, even in the way he's presented, he's kind of like idealistic, and because he's all about, hope and potential, especially, once the movie gets into like the last act and he starts kind of monologuing about why he does what he does and why he does what he does and why he hopes that people find themselves in the room. But he doesn't feel like he could ever do that. He doesn't trust himself. And he feels way more comfortable in a weird way, other than the fact of breaking the law to go into the zone. That's where his mind is still back there. It's still like oppressed. That's why I mean, like, he's like a working class person. Like, he's not part of this, like, this external abstract world of the artist and the professor. Like, he's not. Those guys can see beyond their circumstance. They want to go beyond their circumstance. Like, honestly, the whole thing with the writer, he has writer's block. He's stuck in the sepia tone. He doesn't like it, and he wants to get out of it. And the professor, what you find out is basically, which is so funny because it's like this funny criticism about scientific communities, intelligentsia, I suppose, kind of like what we've been talking about in Zoobox Live and stuff the past couple weeks, is it's all petty grievance.
And hubris.
He wants a Nobel Prize. He's arrogant. There's a great scene in the movie where he calls somebody from inside the zone, like one of his coworkers. He's like, you fucker, I got you. I'm fucking here. You're a coward. All this. I went into the zone. I am the explorer. I am the scientist. And the guy's like, you're just doing this because I fucked your wife 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yep.
And he kind of has nothing to say. And he's like, don't hang up on me. Don't hang up on me. And he kind of chews him out for another 3 minutes, and then he hangs up the phone. But
I thought the professor, well, because that obviously wasn't true, though, the Nobel Prize thing, because he was going to blow it up.
Well, I don't think he knew what he was going to do. He didn't know if he was going to do it or not.
I mean,
or maybe he sets a timer and goes in the room.
No, but that's why he calls the guy and he goes, I found it. They were trying to preserve it because that gave them access to the zone.
Yeah.
Like the sign, that's what I got anyway. When I was
pretty
like,
fair.
Like, and he's like, I fucking found it, you fool. You thought, like, blah, blah. And that's why when they first get to the room, he's like, Bunker 4 is very old.
Well, that's what it makes sense, because like he is somebody as a scientist or as a professor or whatever, he rejects, like you had said before, kind of spirituality, as the esoteric nature of the world. He just doesn't believe in it. So he doesn't care, and he's doing it to be destructive to his peers, I suppose, because he's kind of, it's an affront to him on some level. But I think he wants to win a Nobel Prize by stopping this.
Well, like there could be that, but I also I completely think that Stalker and the Professor are very similar. And they represent that very easily by the writer always being distance for the most part. Whether he's going off on his own, and the Professor decides to leave, which is the only reason he did survive and the Zone didn't overtake him is because he's very similar to the Stalker. He can represent patterns, or he can understand and contextualize the Zone better, maybe. So like. But you look at science, much like a religion, a set of beliefs, and structures, discipline, order, dogmas, doctrines. So like that's why he tricked the writer to go first, because he would be the one. The Professor has kind of already proven his worth in the Zone. So when they go into the meat grinder in the sewer, he tricks him by giving him the long straw matchstick. But like in the writer believes. Because he hates authority, he goes like, "Why did you tricked me? You were trying to lead me to my death."
Yeah.
So like I always viewed the Professor and Stalkers very much as it's like the difference between like Christianity or religion versus science and how they're so similar. They work on the same part of your brain.
Yeah, like it's the same. Yeah, because it's about rules. It's about order, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's and that's kind of the broad strokes of the movie, actually. Like that's what it is about, in my opinion. And it's also about just like kind of the nature of hope and what that can do for a person. Like, going back to the end of the movie, when you see his daughter, you see his daughter's POV basically. Even in the oppressive sepia tone world, her world is in color because she doesn't know any better. And also you see that it's kind of like, I think in a metaphorical sense, it's like, the next generation is the hope for the future and to change this world and to get us out of the situation. They're special. They grow up with like kind of our suffering and in their hindsight, and they can learn from that. Like, and also, and then they literalize it in the movie by saying stalkers basically have mutant children because the Zone is irradiated, and his daughter's a cripple and stuff, but she has psychic abilities. So that's what they show you at the end of the movie.
Yeah. Maybe.
Well, I think it's pretty clear.
Well, no, because then the train comes and it shakes the whole table and the glass falls off. Maybe it was his vibrations at the train.
That was a pretty long...
I'm just saying. You could add that. No, probably not.
It's very appropriate in the way they filmed it because it's like a 4-minute just locked off thing. It was interesting just going to like a little bit of the production stuff. I found this out actually the other day while kind of just looking into stuff about Stalker. Apparently, Russian filmmakers invented the montage.
What do you mean?
The
like
cinematic language of the montage, of editing montages together to like take a long period of time and then condense it into like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, so like a trailer.
Or well, like not necessarily a trailer, but like you've seen movies like Rocky, right? Rocky, when he does his workout, he does a montage, but it covers
so
like probably a month.
Instead of 8 months, they do it in like
4 minutes.
4 minutes. I see.
So Tarkovsky, kind of being a little bit of a contrarian, a little bit pushing back, he's like, "No, dude, I'm gonna make very long, ponderous. I'm gonna do locked off shots. I'm not. No, it completely works. What I'm saying is though, like." It's that scene is funny to me just because, like, do you need 4 minutes to do that? No. I mean, just like so many things in the movie, do you need to have a 4.5 minute thing of dudes like sitting at the threshold of the room while water is like trickling down and falling? No. But what it does, it creates this verisimilitude. It creates this hypnotic quality to it where you just get like sucked into the world and the experience of the characters. Like, there's not a ton of dialogue and stuff in the movie. A lot of it's just them kind of walking around. I mean,
I kind of think that what I do like about older movies, at least I can't think of any in modern times, but monologues. Monologues were like each character gets their monologue in this film. Yeah. Like there is a moment where they get to speak their truth or whatever. It's something I miss. Like after watching Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. There's a lot of monologues, like some great, like to be able to hold your attention for that long. Like this movie is a testament, not just to patience, but like I'm not gonna lie. Like I think there was a part of me that goes, "Oh wow, that is it." Like I was expecting a spectacle
Yeah.
at some point. You know, I think it's building to that. It's building to like this big moment.
But
then
it does build to a big moment intellectually, like where you're just like, can you trust yourself?
Well, like I think what you see at the end there, so they're showing, you know, the water, the rain or whatever comes down in the room and, you know, washing stuff out or whatever, and then it shows two fish and then like some little silver thing from the bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see blood, and then you see oil, and you start what I think is oil anyway, the blackness. Like you start thinking, is like that is really nature with the atomic age and war and then what we fight over is resources and all these little like this, and they destroying our environment for our own petty human wants and needs, you know, like to expand conquest, I guess. And it just in that one moment, that to me is art. Like that is something that you can't, like, to get that from like two fish just swimming near a piece of metal and blood and but I felt like it naturally takes you there. That's how this movie gets you thinking as you're watching it, because the lack of context and the lack of dialogue and the long drawn out periods of these long, you have nowhere else to revert but into your own head.
Yeah, exactly.
You start thinking.
Yeah, it presents you with ideas and then gives you the time to at least start to think about them.
And a lot of time.
Yeah, a lot of time.
And I asked it, like, I love that scene when they first harp on the rail car, and then like all you hear is like the da-da,
yeah, the train, yeah,
da-da, bling, like the music gets all weird and stuff. Like I think Dyer talked about that, and I went back and I just watched that one scene because I was like, that is such a great use of like they really are kind of shifting, you know, like there's some shift that's happening, and you know, it's just. It really is art, man. And but I kept getting this feeling of like this repressive or oppressive, like government, and this feeling that they can't escape. And even though they get to the room and they decide not to go into the room, they still go back to their old lives. And the dog comes with them, which says like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Why? So doesn't that mean it's actually happened? Because there's a part of you that could question, is this like a dream? Is this real? But the dog does come back.
Yeah, I think that's the part of the metaphysical nature of the zone. That's why I mean, like, the stalker, maybe, I could be wrong, but I think from what I kind of took away from it is the stalker, like, manifested the dog into reality. Like, and it's kind of in a weird way saying, like, you can make your dreams come true if you just have the will to do it. And the zone will provide you the environment where that can happen. So what the dog coming back means, like, yes, it did happen. We brought something back.
You know what? We should remake this movie into a horrible thriller, like horror movie.
Well,
just ruin it.
I would. There is a movie that's very heavily inspired from a couple years ago, and I would actually suggest revisiting it after just watching Stalker. Is Annihilation, the Alex Garland movie. It stars Natalie Portman. He took a lot of inspiration from Stalker and kind of made a science fiction thriller.
Literally, it's about his own. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah,
it has a lot of similar themes and stuff.
I'm going to go back and watch that.
It's based on a book. I mean, Annihilation is based on a book, but Alex Garland, he had a kind of a cool way of adapting the book. He read the book in one night and then never went back to it and just wrote a screenplay based on his memories of the book.
I like that. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And then he was just like, yeah, and Stalker was a big inspiration, because instead of the room in Annihilation, you have a much more bombastic spectacle scene when they get to the lighthouse, because that's what is that about? It's about identity and self-actualization and dealing with yourself and your traumas and blah blah blah, and it's a much more direct way of dealing with a similar concept that you find the three men at the end of this film dealing with.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's true. It's just man, this movie takes you to so many different places if you want it to. You can really, like, I mean, it is like one thing that kind of stuck out to me. I'm sitting here, I'm going, so there's, if you guys haven't seen this, I don't know why the fuck you're this far in this, but But they tie nuts and bolts, this bolt to a piece of cloth, and they toss it, and that's like supposed to guide them.
Yeah, the markers, basically.
Well, no, but they pick them up. They don't mark. They pick it up every time.
No, I know they pick it up, but it's like a testing, like...
Right. But so I was thinking when I started, I was like, oh, maybe they're testing for mines. That's why I was like, that would make sense to me.
Yeah.
Because he says, watch where you step. And this obviously used to be some sort of battlefield or military occupation place with all the tanks and everything. Something happened here. And that's what I was thinking. Because he does say, he's like, watch your step, man. Like,
I think
you could get blown up.
I think it is a reference to like war-torn territories that have been abandoned. Like,
right, and it makes sense because the magnetism.
I think actually, from what I understand, the book is way more explicit about that, and I do think it has to do with what you're saying.
It makes sense to me, but I was also thinking about how the fictitious or like the habits that we do to like it's like people who have what's it called like you don't walk under ladders. Stuff. Superstitious, like this superstitious thing where you just have a bolt and you're just tossing it and then you're just guiding you and also because like this movie
it's about faith, right? It's about faith.
Yes, and we use trinkets and all these things to express our faith and belief in our faith. But I remember like we're watching, he's like, because the writer is walking towards the room when he first leaves, he's like, they're not far.
No, it's right there.
Like, it's like a couple hundred, I think they say a couple hundred meters in the movie, and you're like, God, that is disorienting. And that's the beauty of this movie is it takes you, it's something that is so close, which is death, which is faith, something that is so close to you. You can just, if you just reach out for it, but you can't. You have to go through life. You have to battle through attrition, sleep deprivation, the want to just get to the end, but you can't. You can't cheat the system. If you do, you're screwing yourself. And it's such a great. But the journey matters more than the destination. Yeah, that's what this movie is really saying.
Yeah, because I think you can take away from the end of the movie, they've all had, or at least the writer and the professor have had a life-changing experience where their preconceived notions about what it means to exist and what like life is supposed to be about is different. Like it has changed.
Stalker feels like a failure. That's a really interesting point because he feels like he's like, I lead them. I how can they not believe? That's why I'm saying it's like Christ. Like it's like this Christ-like prophet figure leading these people to their salvation. Like whether or not, it's like if there's one thing that you could kind of view Christ as, he brings you to the water but doesn't make you drink basically. And it's like how many times can you go through life where you go through this journey and then you decide to reject God. You reject the room because of your own fears of what acceptance of your destiny. Or like it's like a fear of that.
Accepting who you are is a scary thing because we put on so many faces, so many masks, so many things throughout our lives depending on who we're interacting with or the context of the situation. It's almost like very rarely are we ever our true selves? And that's something that I think, social media especially has exacerbated in the current era,
Well, I mean, Tom McDonald's topping the charts, Sean, so I don't, there's hope. I don't know if you did see, I'm not trying to get off subject. He did just release a new video, 2 million views.
I was gonna do a hot reacts only. I haven't got around.
You should, but hey, I just think this movie takes away, it makes you feel vulnerable. And then that's a really good thing that it does. It makes you feel vulnerable. You're questioning. But it's like you have to be willing to go through the threshold because as the viewer, you're like, go in the room almost. Like a part of you is like, just go in. You're here. You've come this far. Why not just complete the leg of this journey? There's a selfish reason for you as the viewer that you want to see what happens in the room because it really has no effect on you.
We get to go in the room, though. You remember how the point of view changes?
Yes.
We're in the room.
Right. So,
looking at them because we've it's very pretentious, but like having watched the movie and having done all these things.
You've been enlightened.
We've been enlightened. Yes.
Which maybe we have been. But I think, is Tarkovsky Russian? I'm guessing, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So he's Russian. He obviously grew up in a very oppressive.
He did. And Tarkovsky's an interesting dude. Very intense, crazy, kind of a Kubrick-esque kind of guy.
I listened to some interviews with him. He reminds me more of like a what's this fuck? He's a writer. Oh my god, it's my favorite poem. Roll the Dice. Famous Nirvana. He wrote that song, not the song, the poem read by Tom Waits. Tom Waits loves him. Oh, I can't remember. Charles Bukowski.
Oh, Bukowski.
He's like a Bukowski, like an angry kind of just like
an
fuck
angry
you.
Russian guy. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's like 2000 Space Odyssey is just awful. He's like it's too pretty. It's too pretty. Who needs to see
he made
pretty things?
The only other Tarkovsky movie I've seen 3 Tarkovsky movies. I saw his first movie. It's called Ivan's Childhood, and I've seen Solaris.
Never seen The Mirror?
No, I've never seen The Mirror.
I want to watch that next. I was like,
there's
cool.
a bunch of them on Criterion Channel. Not all of them, but there's a bunch of them. And Solaris is his response to 2001, but it's an interesting response because it has like a conversation with the meta qualities of 2001, and he brings it down to a much more human level. So if you say like Kubrick is the head, Tarkovsky in a weird way is the heart. He's the dreamer. He's the philosopher.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where like Kubrick is like the scientist.
He's the clinician.
Yeah,
he's like
exactly. But
he's an expert.
But Tarkovsky though himself is a little bit of a crazy perfectionist. Now, some of the background history, they've made this movie like 3 times.
3 times, yeah. Well, because the first time
something wrong with the film stock.
Well, from what I remember, it was because the same film stock. It was a Kodak film stock, and it was used to film Star Wars, Blade Runner, like a bunch of these famous movies, Aliens, I think at the time, and the Russian not the DP, the freaking people who get the film ready. I can't remember what they're called.
He blamed the DP, but the people that had developed the film.
Yeah, it gave this green
dark
hue.
look. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
then that got destroyed in 1988.
And he was, that's never been seen. Yeah. There's only one shot in the movie that's from the original shoot, which is you see like a body of water, and there's all the foam, which is from because there was a paper mill up the way, and it's all the toxic shit from the paper mill, which everybody involved in this movie pretty much died within about 15 to 20 years. The last guy, the oldest one made it to 1996. He was the DP, the guy who came in the third time.
61.
Yeah, Tarkovsky dies in 50. He was 54.
Yes, he was 54. He would be like 80 something
because they were out in Estonia, which had radiation poisoning in there, and then there was all the factories. Obviously, there's no regulations. They were in septic water. They were like those places were real places.
The first film did not take place in Estonia. They did not. There was an earthquake.
That
destroyed the location of the first film.
Yeah, and then they went somewhere else. And then the third one they ended up doing. The second and third one they were in Estonia, and the second time they filmed the movie, which I don't know if they completed either of the first or second goes at it. I don't think they had the whole movie, but he just didn't like it. He just like, this is shit. I don't like what we've captured here. We need to go do it again. And he
all
tricks,
the same
and then
actors?
he like tricks, all the same actors. He tricks this because it took him a couple years to finish this, just the filming of it. And
because he was going to make it a 2-part movie.
Yeah, well, he basically went to the financiers and lied. He's like, well, we can make it a 2-parter. We need some extra funding to do some reshoots to make this 2, and then he just filmed the rest of the movie.
Yeah, he's like, fuck it.
Yeah.
It's a testament to belief. He believed in the story.
Dude, I love that. See, that is the kind of artist or the kind of filmmaker or musician or whatever. Like, I want your point of view. I want your creation. I don't want it to be compromised. Whether I like it or not, I can respect somebody that like puts down their vision.
Like hearing about this, I got very Apocalypse Now vibes. Just like everything's gone wrong type of stuff. And I guess there's a famous from The Mirror, I believe what it is. I think that's what it is. They literally burned down a house.
Yes.
And they like forgot to film it. Or they didn't have enough cameras set up.
The DP suggested, Tarkovsky's like, hey, we should get more than one camera in case anything goes wrong. Tarkovsky's like, nah, whatever. I don't need to do that. And then the camera jammed within 30 seconds.
Yep. And then they, I think, did it again, and it messed up again. Like, it was something crazy. Like, it was something wild like that.
No, I think
like it met.
I think
I don't know if they got on.
I think they got it on the second time. They burned down a house.
Yeah, it's probably just a shell of a house. Was probably wasn't a real
Who
house.
the fuck knows with these Russians?
I know,
dude?
I know. But this is really what I think the movie shows to me. Great suffering leads to what the Russians went through. People don't fucking know, man. They don't fucking know. You know, they really don't. I don't think people were eating their fucking children.
Yeah.
Like, this is some fucking heavy shit. These people lived one of the most oppressive times in history, in modern history, and out of that sprung this great art from this horrible, horrible suffering.
Yeah.
Like,
but because it has, like I said before when I was talking about the stalker's daughter, it has kind of a hopeful ending, in the sense of like I said before, like the foundation, all of these decisions that were made that had nothing to do with his daughter before she was brought into the world now inform her. But she has like kind of this beautiful innocence and naivete, not to be weighed down with it in the same way that her father is, or the writer, or the professor.
Well,
they have a hard time disconnecting from the life they live to see potential in a more hopeful future. And that's what upsets Stalker. That's what upsets him about the writer and the professor not going into the room. Also upsets himself that he can't move beyond it because he's just accepted that he's a stalker, and that's kind of a finite thing. It has boundaries, it has rules. He doesn't know how to break out of that, you know?
Well, I think, you know, in the very opening scene of the movie, he's trying to sneak out, right, to go do this mission. And the wife obviously wakes up because they live in the creakiest, nastiest, wettest floors I've ever seen. The wettest floors anywhere. I was sitting there. I was like, "How do these people not? Is this mopping all?" I know how many times they must have had a mop constantly to keep the floors that wet. These wooden floors, they're just soaked. It was really weird. I remember just thinking that. I'm like, "How are these floors are always?"
It's supposed to give you the sense of like uncomfortable, damp.
Yeah, it's definitely. But he, as this Christ-like figure, leaves because he doesn't even really say anything to his daughter before he leaves. His wife is screaming and crying and begging him to stay. It's not worth being locked up in prison for 10 years. You just got out after 5, you know, and he's willing to throw it all away because there is where the writer and the professor definitely criticize him. They're like, "You're God here. You have all the power and you love it. You're addicted to it. It's the only thing that gives you meaning."
It gives him purpose. Yeah.
And
it's all he knows.
But he was willing to throw that all away. But I think him bringing the dog back, this physical connection to the zone, because obviously his daughter is connected to the zone in some weird way. Maybe that's why he won't go in the room, because maybe his daughter will not be there.
Maybe she'll die because she's in suffering. He considers her circumstances suffering, right?
Yes.
I think that's a great point, actually. Yeah, him bringing a piece of the zone back to kind of show him what really matters. Maybe it's like you can maybe even get the sense at the end of the movie, because of the way the writer and the professor, he's like now maybe more comfortable and happy and accepting of like what's important.
Yeah.
And his family's important. His daughter is important.
Her view is why they're so using that so much at the end there, is because it's her eyes. Like, she doesn't need to see the awfulness of the world and like this disgusting, I can be the hope for her, because ultimately the zone represents the future, the youth, the unknown, the thing that you can't control. We all try to pretend we can, but you have to believe things will get better. And by believing by believing in your daughter and saying, "You know what? I love my family. I don't know if I need to be risking everything for these guys that just don't have faith, and they never will."
Yeah, exactly. Because he's so disillusioned that he's like, I bring people here to give them hope, to give them meaning, to help them find themselves, and nobody ever really does. Yeah. And so he's like, he can be the stalker, if you will, in his own life, right? Like he can, like you said, his daughter, his family becomes his project of hope.
I think his daughter became the stalker.
Becomes
That's like
a stalker? Well, you mean like
for him
in a metaphorical
like,
sense?
Metaphorical,
Yeah.
not literal.
Yeah.
Yeah, like she is going to be the guiding light.
Yeah, she's going to guide him to find happiness, right?
Yeah, I mean, and the wife, she's surprisingly, it's just very strange. She is not mad when they do come back to their town. Not mad. No, like they don't tell you how they got back. There's no. It's kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And they have the dog, and she just makes like a joke, like, "Oh, hi." Like she's not mad. Like she was furious. She was furious, but then she has this where she's taking him to the bed, and he's very upset, and she's like, She like sits back into the corner of the room near the window, and she's smoking a cigarette, and she's like, I have never regretted, being with you. Even though I felt grief, loss, like pain, but I exile, whatever. She's like, I still love you, or I still believe in you.
Yeah.
And I still believe in us. And I think that was like a really, really awesome moment because she understands that he's a stubborn man. He's stubborn. I don't think anyone would say that something like, Christ was a stubborn bastard. Like, belief is stubbornness, I think that you have to be stubborn. Like, it's this unrelenting, but you have to give in to the future. You have to give in to your family and not be this monster.
You have to find purpose in what you have. It's not always some nebulous concept that's just out there, right?
You can't be just searching for something that is already in your arms. It's already there. You're just looking for other reasons to not take responsibility of your family, to 100%. Not take action and say, I understand that I don't have a perfect life, but I can still make it a good life. And maybe that's a lesson he learned by taking the dog back. He can still have some connection, some trinket, and also control over the zone. The dog resembles discipline. The dog is something that the man can control.
Yeah.
By taking it from the zone, he maybe feels power in that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that's a perfect read on it, actually.
What can I say, dude?
I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts?
It's something. This is a movie like it's not. I don't even think we've done it. Someone else could watch this and have completely different.
Well, but I think it's like I'm not a Tarkovsky expert by any means.
I've never watched any of his films.
Dan's never watched any of his movies, and we're not obviously like the most familiar with this movie. It's not like 2001 or whatever for me, where I've seen it 50 billion times and I have very distinct, well thought out ideas about what I think the movie is getting at. But I think that's kind of beautiful about Stalker, because it is something that every time I watch Stalker, I like it more.
Well, that's the thing, is like I deliberately chose not to watch it again. Mainly because kind of like, I guess you could say, the principle that the director of Annihilation. Like I just wanted to see, it's actually kind of incredible how much I do remember.
Yeah, you have pretty good recall.
Like, I mean, honestly, like I'm like a little shocked because
it sticks with you. It really
does.
crawls into your fucking brain. Like,
dude,
from the way that the sound design, the subtle score, the cinematography, it's a gorgeous fucking movie.
It's incredible.
Like, I would love to see the version of this that he threw away because it wasn't good enough. Like, I'm like, what the fuck does that even look like?
It's just like an action movie or something. Some trash.
Aliens are in the grass.
Yeah. It's like The Happening or something. Because this movie and The Happening actually is kind of a good, like, in a weird way.
Well, about just the creepiness of nature.
Well, because this movie is definitely like an environmental, I think, lesson as well.
It has that. It has a little bit of that subtext.
Well,
for sure.
Because it's weird. He's got this erotic fixation or this love for the zone. Like when he first shows up, he's like intoxicated. He lays in the grass, and there's something that is really unique. It always caught my attention. He shows up the first time when it goes into color. And he's like, the flowers have no smell here, right? Or something like that. And he goes down into this ravine, and he's just laying in the grass. He takes a little wee nap. There's a lot of nap and a lot of laying in this film. and like he doesn't care the bugs are crawling him, they're on him, they like it's just he's like basically being encompassed by the zone. But he doesn't, then he comes back and he keeps referencing like the lack of smell in this flower. Does that mean that this is like an artificial flower doesn't have smell?
You know, maybe it's like the metaphysical quality again, like about the zone kind of taking on the attributes of what you want it to. And if he wants it for himself. You know, when they were filming this originally, apparently the Stalker character was a much shadier,
weird guy,
and he did not have great like ends. He was not as about hope and stuff. That's something they actually changed like halfway through making the movie. They rewrote a lot of the script.
Well, he does kind of come off as like a criminal, right? I mean, that's what they're trying to say, or at least persecuted.
Well, he's not in the zone for other people. He's there for himself, which I think is still present in this as well. But he does have this other motive of like, he wants to, like you said, he kind of wants to be a savior. He wants to be like kind of a prophetic figure. But he's too tied to what he thinks the world is. And that's part of the lesson that he learns at the end. This does not always, the life, you can't always expect it to conform to the way you perceive it or you want it to be. So I think like when he gets into the zone, like it's an erotic, it's a very like primal thing. He's just like laying in the dirt and grabbing it with his hands and like, cause he wants to be part of the zone. He is the zone. Like, you know, that's what gives him purpose. Like we said before, like this whole process of him being a stalker, just like with the writer and the professor, they're very rigid in their identities based on what role they play in society.
I still think the professor and Stalker are like very similar because there's a reason why they're always so close to each other.
You know, I
it's
agree.
Always the writer.
I agree with you, and I think
like the writer is the one that has to go out and venture and like be afraid. They're the ones that have to get fear so they can come back and like report it. Because when he goes up to the building, the room or the entrance to the room at first, he hears stop, and no one tells you who said it, like because they say it wasn't them. The professor and Stalker said, wasn't us. He's like, and because the professor mocks him, he goes, he's like, you're hearing things in your head, huh?
Yeah, well,
like,
because like maybe that's what it is. That's the influence of the Stalker. He's in his head a little bit, and he's like, it makes you anxious, gives you anxiety.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying about the professor and the Stalker, I think it bears out because there's one scene in the movie when they're going through the tunnel with like the water and stuff, and it's the writer and the Stalker walking together, and they just bicker the whole time.
Yep.
Where you don't ever see the professor and the Stalker really bicker. They don't really fight. Because they have like a clear sense of purpose where the writer or the artist, however you want to put it, is much more like feeling it out. I need to, like you said, I need to experience this myself. I need to feel the danger. I need to see the zone. I need to walk through those doors.
What do you think? How long do you think the writer was in that sand room? Because it makes it seem like it's been a minute. Because he wakes up in the water.
There's a point in the movie, right? Like where...
What a great monologue in that scene, though. That is an amazing... When he's sitting on the pipe.
Oh, it's amazing. Oh, I wish we could watch
that guy, dude, and not to mention how the mockery the writer does of Christ. He creates the crown of thorns, and he's wearing it. And, like, it's like almost he's mocking the Stalker. Like, look at me. Like, I forgive you. You know, and this is what the... philosophers or like the writers do. They mock God. They say that's absurd.
Yeah.
You know, the nihilism. But it's I can tell you this much. I am always, I think, happy when I watch a movie and I have no idea what it's about and it's unsuspecting, and it's kind of like the first time you watch F for Fake, or for me, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. It is so awesome. Like that feeling you get of just being like, I've never experienced something like that. And that's awesome. Like it's a really good feeling.
Yeah, it's pure discovery. And it's so often, we're so detached because of popular filmmaking of the day. And we're so inundated with just thoughtless crap.
I don't even know. I think it's always been that way, right, though?
Well, I mean, there's always been popular stuff. And I guess today, are there people still making movies on this level?
Paul Thomas Anderson, I think.
He comes close. He definitely comes close. He's much more thoughtful, but he's much more literally minded as well. Like,
well, he's obviously not working in the same, artistic style, but I think The Phantom Thread is one of those movies that really asks you about the nuances of relationship and suffering for somebody and like all this weird sickness crap. Like it's the strangest I think that's probably his most meta,
like cerebral movie.
Yeah, like that one. You know, like the There Will Be Blood is very, yeah, this is it. This is what's fucking happening. The Master is a little bit.
Yeah, it has. They all have layers. I wouldn't suggest that they're just like literal and they're just one scene after another, and you know exactly what it means. And
the first time you watch There Will Be Blood, you're not like. I mean, you may ask questions and you may love it like I did, but I think that takes multiple viewings to see it.
Oh, because there's a surface narrative to attach yourself to, whereas something like Stalker is much more obtuse. It's much more abstract. Like, you know, there's a point in the movie because, like we said before, 200 meters away from the entrance of the zone is the room, and
it's like right there.
But the movie does this thing, like Dan had said before, where you feel like you become disorientated because the zone, the time and space stop mattering. So even the scene when they're taking a nap, like they're going to bed at night, it's never nighttime. Like they're like, you know what I'm saying? Like it comes in and out of this weird space.
Well, because it feels like, because the way they make it seem, it feels like it's been hours and hours and hours. He's like, it's going to be nighttime sooner. We need to hurry up. And they spend another 2 hours like just hanging out,
laying in the grass, like talking shit to each other.
Like, I got to take a nap, bro. And the fucking writer just won't stop. But the professor is not really bothered by it. It's so weird. And then they wake up laying together because at the end of the day, they're both dreamers. You know, like in this weird way, they're both like, you know, they don't really hate each other, but they just hate the way that each other sees the world.
Well, because I think it's a subtle kind of commentary on class a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like because it's like an avalanche or a waterfall. It's like the professor at the top looking down on the writer looking down on the stalker, in terms of how they feel about themselves and who's like more valuable, because the writer, like, he bickers with the professor or antagonizes him, but it's in this very childish, petulant way, like, oh, you think you're so smart, well, prove it to me. Like, that's something you would say to somebody that you feel is like a better or something if you were insecure, right? Like, and I think there's definitely that present in the movie. It's not like a large part of the film, but it's definitely there. Like, but it informs everything that happens. It informs all their conversations and.
Yes, there's definitely an antagonistic relationship, I believe, at every point in the movie. There is, like, between each character. There's always a little bit of antagonism.
That's what it's all about. It's about the struggle of the heart and the mind and hope and authoritarianism and freedom, and that's kind of all the things that it's dealing with. And it's a movie I think you could come back to again and again and probably pull more out of, you know?
You definitely can't watch this in China. You probably won't be able to watch it in the United States in the next 5 years, according to the House Counts.
Has been banned.
Probably. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't.
It's too dissonant. Well, because I think Tarkovsky is actually, like, from what I understand, I think he was religious. I think he might have either been Catholic or Christian. There's a lot of, like, Russian religious iconography.
Yeah, no, I know. That's what I was saying. It's like all over the place. Well, I think I really do believe this is more about.
Well, I think it's
Christ-like journey.
It's either Jesus or Saint Paul. It's like one of those Russian, like, paintings.
That's what that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I think it's Christ, and then they show the pieces of silver.
Yeah, I know.
Before that, so that's like, there's definitely a lot of Christian iconography
and illusions and stuff.
And illusions. Yeah. I think the whole entire thing is about people get so close to God that they just won't let go, and like a lot of the time, even the priests have doubt and question their faith, and you know, are they even doing what the right, doing the right thing, or leading people down the wrong path, and blah 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 blah. But hey, I say go watch it. I give it a 10 out of 10, man. Like, for me, and yeah, I mean, that's what I gotta say about it. I think, I don't know, unless you got anything else.
Well, I don't know if you like. We don't have to do this.
No, what?
I watched a review. It's kind of a short one, and the guy, like, absolutely hated it. It might be funny to just, like, check it out for a second.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find it real quick here. Yes, I did. I found it. It's from a couple months ago.
He hated it, huh?
He, like, this is like.
So this is the writer.
This is like
He will be the writer in this sequence. You will be with the professor, and I will be the stalker.
Let's check this out. This will be
All
fun.
right,
This might be a fun way to just end it, so we can hear what a normie film lover thinks. This guy loves cinema, dude.
My favorite movie is probably fucking Endgame or something.
Released in 1979, Stalker was written and directed by Andrei Tarkovsky.
So now you hear his voice. You hear an erudite British man. You might think he would love this film.
I mean, he has some good. He has Blade Runner there, like Alien.
It just seems like random shit.
Thing, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I mean, you're definitely seeing an era, a generation. Like
this
the 70s, 80s.
80s, 90s, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a genre fan. He's got
Amelia.
He's got a Shining T-shirt on. Amelie. That's Amelie. It's a French movie. It's a pretty good movie, actually. But
Tarkovsky. I've watched Stalker as part of my movie project to watch the IMDb.com's top 250 films of all time, and this is number 204 in the top 250. This is the 179th film I've seen of the 250, and if I were to rank all 179, Stalker would be 179th. A guide known as a stalker leads two men through an area called the Zone to find a room which apparently grants wishes. Welcome back to the channel and my movie review of Stalker. If you're new here, don't just consider
now, do you think if you had watched the movie and you were talking about it, I suppose that's an introduction, would you say that the room grants wishes?
I mean, it does allude to that. And that's kind of what that's what they're saying. It will grant you whatever you want. He does say that. Stalker talks about it. And I think it's to continue to them keep pushing forward.
Yeah, but they come to a conclusion at the end that it's not really a wish. It's just your deepest desire.
That is the writer's interpretation. That's what the writer believes. The writer is the one that dissects Porcupine's death. And that's what ultimately stops the professor and the writer from entering the room. Is that that's what their conclusion was. The stalker never admits that.
Okay. Fair enough.
subscribe in.
Do it. Do it!
And if you like this video, please like this video. So I think I've let it out the bag that I didn't enjoy Stalker very much, but there are some positives. The film looks extremely authentic and it does a really good job of creating this world which has apparently been ravaged by war and some kind of disaster, nuclear or something else.
Yeah,
apparently
right.
Lots of the external shots were shot at a couple of disused hydro power stations in Estonia, and you can tell it looks really authentic. These are really kind of spooky, realistic, grey, dreary, horrible, drab places. I like the way Tarkovsky frames some of the shots. The film is quite famous for its very long single shot takes where the frame acts as a kind of stage. The very opening shot of the film is a very good example of this, a treacle slow zoom into a bedroom. The caveat of this admittedly effective filming method is the context within these frames is often dull and laborious, pretentious and near endlessly waffly. There are some interesting uses of colour. The early scenes are in a dull sepia. It's almost like this is the world's first brown and white film. And the colour gradually increases as the three men get closer to the room in this zone. The cast are extremely good. Again, there's a real sense of authenticity in how they act. At times it's almost like you're watching a documentary. But again, there's a caveat. When they talk, the effect is well and truly shattered. Before I get into the numerous negatives of Stalker, this is a popular film. People love it. People give it 10 out of 10.
But
it's
not
a stone
me.
cold classic in some people's eyes. If you're one of these people, let me know in the comments what you
He's
like
the
about
writer.
this film.
He doesn't even
Why am I
understand it.
wrong to hate it? I'm not. So to the negatives. Where to start?
He is, dude. He's the writer and the professor. He's just like, hey.
No, he's just the writer.
Even if you
His
give
arrogance.
me contrary information, there's no way you're going to convince me to like Stalker. What a piece of shit. No, I'm just joking. He's probably a very nice man.
Let's start with the plot. So as I said in the intro, the Stalker guides these two men into this destroyed zone. We don't really quite know how it's been destroyed. A meteorite has been mentioned. It's all sort of a bit fluffy. That's okay. You don't have to spell it out. And somewhere in this zone, apparently, is a room which grants wishes. Okay, that is a cool premise. I really like that. Why do these characters go on this incredibly dangerous mission to find this room? What is it that they want? What is it that they're going to wish for? Well, for almost the entire runtime, all 2 hours 41 minutes of this film, it has really no interest in telling us what these characters want. There are no real character arcs as such. Why?
See, I just totally disagree with that.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
I think the idea, like, it's supposed to be elusive because I don't think anybody really knows what they want. Like, that's kind of the point.
Well, like, but the character arc, like, what do like, what does he mean? Like, what is?
Well, dude, does a character start in one place and then end in a different place? I think
they do end in a different place.
Yes, emotionally, psychologically, they end in a different place. Like, they didn't go into the room, but they did learn something about themselves. Like, right?
Yeah, like that. They're not willing to go there, I guess. Well, I just, I mean, I don't know. I just disagree. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Does the Stalker want to guide these people through the zone? Why is he so obsessed with it to the point of pretty much abandoning his whole family? Why does the Stalker not feel the need to use the room for himself? I have no idea. The Stalker keeps explaining that the zone will mess with you, it will tease you and taunt you.
Well, he does explain why he doesn't go into the room. He says because he's not allowed, and he doesn't trust himself. Motherfucker.
Right.
Bump a chord. There you go. There's a little chime for you people. There we go.
You try to confuse you, even try to kill you. Again, it's a great premise, but it's almost completely wasted. The only threat that comes from the zone is what the Stalker tells the people about the zone. The zone doesn't really do anything. There's one moment where the zone apparently whispers in one of the men's ears and he turns around, and another moment where it takes them in a loop back where they've just come from. But that's about it. There's no real sense of danger from the zone because it doesn't actually do anything.
Because that's, to me, like we discussed, it's about perception. It's about thinking that it's dangerous, whether it is or not. And that's what gives somebody anxiety, because that's what, like, potentiality brings to your attention. The variables. I could do this. Here's all the things, the possible scenarios that could come of me taking an action. And that's kind of part of, I think, the nature of the zone and what Tarkovsky's getting at. But
during one absolutely tortuous scene, the men have to walk through a tunnel known as the meat grinder. The Stalker keeps emphasising how incredibly dangerous this tunnel is and how you shouldn't mess with it, how you shouldn't disrespect it because it can kill you. So they just walk through it. It takes about 15 minutes for them to walk through this tunnel, and not
such a great scene.
Fucking thing.
I know, isn't it? It is a great scene.
It's such a great scene.
And it has a lot of, like, good peaks and valleys and tension.
My God, the tension.
Yeah.
Like, because you are, like, instinctually, you're like, hurry, like, I just run. Like, just fucking do it. Because this is a thing that I noticed about the meat grinder really quickly, is why do they never want to lose sight of the professor? Right?
Of the writer,
like,
you mean?
I mean, of the writer, yeah. They never want to lose sight of him, because if you do, he might not be there. You know, it's the meat grinder, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that builds that tension, because they're playing catch up the whole time. So it's this really long, slow thing that speed up. This long, slow.
But it just also represents, like, there's a preconception of what something is, and then there's actually kind of experiencing it.
It's like being a kid and telling you someone says, we're going to go check out this haunted house.
Exactly.
Like,
no, it is that. Actually, the zone is that.
Yes, that's
great,
what I'm saying.
That's a great metaphor for the zone. It's like being a kid going into a quote-unquote haunted house. And
where everybody believes it.
And the person that is taking you in there is telling you that it's haunted.
Yep, and then someone goes, "Would you hear that?"
Yeah. So
and then, what? Yeah.
You walk slowly and you creep and you're like,
and then it makes it even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's a perfect metaphor.
Thing happens to them. And there's no level of danger because nothing the Stalker has actually said has really happened. And because you don't give a shit about what these characters want, because the film doesn't really bother telling you, and because there's no threat at any point, there's no tension. I looked up this scene before I did this review and found someone had named it the pinnacle of cinematic tension. It would be like if...
It's like, I'd like to... Give me a Jurassic Park scene, mate. Give me something from JP.
Well, he does have, you know, obviously a Thor poster on his wall, so he loses a lot of credibility right there.
You can't really trust this guy. We know
that is Thor, right? Thor and Hulk.
Yeah, dude, that's a Marvel tard.
Yeah, like,
sorry,
dude,
fella, you might be a good guy, man. I mean, but
if you're gonna sit there and act like, what do you need? Like, what? Like, what do you need in this film? Like, what do you want? An action scene? Do you want, like, these guys to have? Like, I feel like their arcs are there, like, because they have these monologues where they're like expressing themselves, and you learn about them, learn about how they think about the world.
He makes mention of that. I think my biggest takeaway, even so far in the review, is like, oh, you kind of passively watched this movie. And
like, there's no way
you
that
checked out.
There.
Like, you were bored, and you're like, I'm checked out, and then I just sat through it. Like, that's what it seems like. He was not there to kind of really investigate and see if it is something deeper to it or whatever. He just wanted to kind of serve to him on a platter, like a normal conventional movie. And even for Tarkovsky, this is a little bit of a break in norm. It is all of his movies are slow. They are. But some of them have much stronger like narratives. Like Solaris has a very strong narrative. It's a slow movie. It's a ponderous movie. It's about philosophy. It's about memory. It's about lovers lost and what all that stuff means to you. But it moves. It feels like it moves a little bit more than like Stalker does for sure. But you got to understand the complete like package of Stalker. The languid nature of it is part of it. Like, it's part of the experience. And you kind of, that's why when I tell people, and I even told this to you, is like, just be patient with the movie. You got to have some patience for it,
Well, it's just watch it.
Yeah.
Listen, like, if you're paying attention, like, am I saying like I had to get up and go maybe take a smoke break? Yeah. Like, I did a couple times.
Sure.
It's a long fucking movie.
Yeah.
Like, that's a long movie. I'm not even ashamed. When the part 2 came up, I was like, smoke break, get a cup of coffee, reorient. But I think that, I don't really feel like there's anything wrong with that. But
no,
hey, that's just me. I don't know. I mean, this guy just kind of seems like what he's saying, at least for me, is just not, most of this is just not accurate.
Well, he wants he wanted it to be a more conventional experience, right?
Yeah. This is definitely like cut it down to an hour and a half. This movie could have been cut down to an hour and a half.
I wonder if he ever reviewed Annihilation. I should check. I won't make you guys suffer. But no, he probably loved Annihilation.
Yeah, probably.
If in John Carpenter's Halloween, Dr. Loomis keeps talking about how Michael's dangerous and how he'll kill you all and how he's got no emotion, and then you never actually see Michael in the film and the credits roll. Then there's the dialogue. Oh man, then there's the dialogue. It starts okay when they're first travelling through the early stages of the zone. It's a bit chatty, a little bit waffly, a little bit arty and pretentious here and there, but it's bearable, it's okay. Then the closer they get to the room, the more they talk in these archetypal art house monologues, which talk about everything and nothing. Sentences have no connection to the previous sentence, paragraphs have no relation to where they are, what they've done, what they're doing. They spew verbal diarrhea all over the place. Nothing they say has any real meaning, so you can derive any meaning you want from anything they say.
I think that's the point. That's kind of the point.
Well, it's it's definitely philosophical and ponderous, but to say that they are not connected to each other or what they're experiencing, like I said, this is like you just didn't pay very close attention. That's
I don't know. This is hard to watch a little bit.
Don't worry, it's almost over.
Is it about communism? Could be. Is it about the corruption that wealth can create? I can't say that it's not. Is it about Kellogg's cornflakes? Probably not, but, knock yourself out. Oh, and of course there has to be a shoehorned, it's all about religion moment. I mean, talk about ticking all the arty.
Shoehorned, which would means they just stuck it in at the end to give it some meaning.
Huh.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, but I guarantee you, the reason why I wanted to watch this, I do think this is the normie take on Stalker.
This is so disappointing.
Like, if you're a guy,
this is like Solomon. If Solomon watches Stalker, I told him to. That's exactly what he's gonna.
I think Solomon. He's a pretty thoughtful dude. He's not gonna.
No, I think he would like it. That's what I told him. But I've been wrong before.
That's true. But he likes a slow, ponderous, thoughtful, philosophical thing.
Yeah.
He reads Philip K. Dick. He likes like Blade Runner, science fiction.
All right. Well, we don't need to talk about him, but maybe we'll see.
We don't need to talk about that fucker.
Yeah.
No, but I think this is probably like the modern audience, like the kind of media diet we have, what the things we consume. This probably would be the average takeaway. Would be something like this.
This is the guy that like leads to the acceptance of something like communism because he's just not willing to look at it any further than the face. Like he's probably an SJW guy.
He's like, that sounds good.
Like, yeah,
Equality?
He's like, oh yeah,
sounds great.
Yeah. You tell me, yeah, that sounds cool, man. Workers unite, baby. Oh.
Farty. So it's about cornflakes and Jesus now and communism and
sloths and carp and anchovies and orangutans and breakfast cereals and fruit bats and large...
Skip a bit, brother.
On a technical level, there's some quite laughable audio which has obviously been added post-production. Every splash of water goes sploosh. And in one great scene when they're driving a Jeep at about 10 miles an hour and they stop in a little bit of mud, it goes... In general, too, although the...
I can't... That is so fucking...
I mean, you're getting really into it. Like, that's like, what? I mean,
like...
I thought that, too, when I saw it. I was like, they're in mud. But then I got right over it. Like, if you're still thinking about that later...
Well, he's like, it's fake. I feel like I'm talking to, like, one of our cousins. Like,
Well, it's all... But it's also not... That doesn't necessarily mean... I mean, it is a rubber sound, but... like brakes and stuff. Maybe it's like a crappy old vehicle.
I think it's accentuated, but I don't even know if it's accentuated without a purpose. It's supposed to be. It's because it's trying, especially in the beginning of the movie when he's talking about the Jeep. It's trying to like encompass you with a cacophony of industrial sound.
Yeah,
and the effort and the grinding of metal and all this stuff, like you said about like the train on the track, right? So when they go into the zone, it's a much more naturalistic. You hear like wind and the rustle of the grass and walking through like, you know, a grassland and mud and water.
Nature eliminated humans from its existence, and this is where it's supposed to be. Like, this was supposed to be like.
Yeah.
The aesthetics of the film are pretty unique. It has quite a shoddy vibe to the whole thing. If you didn't know, you'd probably guess that this was made in the 1950s, not 1979. Perhaps this is intentional, but the film does not.
Why?
I don't know, man.
Like, why would you even? Because he doesn't.
It did look like the sepia tone stuff. Like, kind of threw me. I was like, oh, this movie looks older, but whatever.
Yeah, but once you watch the whole movie, you understand, get it. Like,
yeah, you should. I mean,
not deserve the benefit of my doubt. Finally, we get a nonsensical and sledgehammer subtle final scene where we find that the stalker's daughter at home, who apparently doesn't have legs but actually does have legs, can move things with her mind. It's like a scene from another film. It has no relation to anything else in the film. It hasn't been earned at all. It's not one of those revelatory, oh wow, kind of moments. The girl has powers obviously bestowed by the zone. Why? How? Why? You may have noticed I hated Stalker. It's an admittedly striking looking film filled with empty characters who give us no reason to love, hate or empathise with them. A plot which sets up lots of great ideas and then pisses on each of them in turn. And themes which are near infinite because of a series of monologues where everyone talks about everything and nothing at the same time. My score for Stalker is 3 out of 10.
All right, you just pause this thing. So I'll just say this much. I feel like this guy doesn't like to think when he watches movies, it seems. But then again, just off this one example. So.
Well, but this is the thing. This is a criticism I bring up all the time on Zoobox Goes to the Movies about, especially modern movies, is people are like, they don't write subtext doesn't exist anymore. It's all has to be delivered to you in the dialogue or the narrative directly, or people think it's not there. Like, it's too subtle. Like, to suggest that the final scene of the movie, you don't understand the context, how that fits into the movie and what was said and what they were talking about, is because you weren't paying attention. And like I said, I have not seen this movie like 100 times or anything. I've seen it 3 times.
I've seen it once.
And you've seen it once, and you picked up on that. Like, it's very clear, like, what is happening. And then there's the subtextual element about what it represents to the themes of the story.
Yeah. I honestly am kind of speechless. I really don't know what to even say to this guy. It's like, maybe we should start issuing licenses for people to be able to speak about movies or something.
Get real. You want to get authoritarian. You want to be in the sepia world. Yeah.
Like, no, you could be like, yeah, man, okay, Mr. Fucking, yeah, communism probably works to you. Like, that's like, you probably just get so upset when something doesn't work right. You know, you're like, why can't it be done today? Today, damn it. And it's like, dude, that's not how life is. Sometimes you got to take a little time with it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And no, that guy has the right to his opinion. It's a fucking dumb one. And I believe you should be put in jail because you're in England. You do not have freedom of speech in England.
Yeah.
But if Count Dankula has to go to jail for a Nazi joke, you should go to jail
for your
speaking
bad takes on Stalker.
No, but hey, man, like whatever. I guess you, as the writer, are stuck in your ignorant place. Shaun, as the professor, enlightened by the experience of not using the nuclearization, a nuclear device, and I am the stalker. Continue evolving. I guess. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I appreciate this conversation. I'm really glad you watched it. I'm really glad you liked it, because I had a feeling, I thought you would like it, because it seems like something that's kind of up your alley, and you've been watching, your movie diet has broadened a lot in the past couple months.
It's like, what movie have you showed me that I really hated besides Richard Jewell? That movie fucking sucks. This movie's fucking trash.
When we're talking about contemporary movies, well, I mean, some of those we were just watching because they were new movies, and we just watched and talked about them. Yeah. I mean, what you hated The Way Back? Isn't that another one you didn't like?
What, The Way Back? I like that movie about the Gulag escape, you guys.
No, the one with Ben Affleck.
Oh, the basketball movie? What a fucking loser. What a fucking loser.
No, and those are not great movies, and they don't touch Stalker. Like, they're not the same. They're not even trying to achieve the same thing. But, no, I'm really glad you liked it, and it'll be awesome. Honestly, like, I want to dive into Tarkovsky, especially after reintroducing it to myself. So if you end up just on a whim, like you watch another one, let me know, because I will watch it, and we could do another one of these.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
It's fun when you find something that's not like a by the numbers conventional movie, because you can actually have like a real conversation.
And it's not ultra mainstream. It is. I know it is, like in the film critic circles.
Yeah.
But it's not something I even knew existed.
I don't even think there's not even a lot of stuff on YouTube about Stalker, actually.
No, I looked like for film interviews and stuff. There's like 1 or 2 interviews with the director and a couple breakdowns of the film.
Yeah.
Like the one you sent me, and I think there was one more.
Yeah, there was. I mean, there's a few of them, like, Stalker and The Search for God, and I think there was a few. Yeah, they're probably very interesting. I didn't watch them because I didn't want to taint myself too much. When I come to these, I kind of look for videos that are more about like the context surrounding the production and stuff. That's where I try to get that information. But yeah, this is a great time, great conversation, Dan. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me.
Thanks again to loomazooma for recommending that we check this movie out and talk about it, because it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed revisiting
dude, seriously.
Stalker.
Thank you, man. Thank you for getting, like, that was a random thing, wasn't it? Like, he just randomly...
it was a real random pull. Although,
thank you.
But we talk about these kind of ideas. This is the kind of thing that kind of permeates a lot of our conversations.
Make sure you tag him. You put #thanks loomazooma.
Oh, I definitely
just so he knows, because... We appreciate. We didn't mention you in the beginning.
Yeah, we did. I did.
Did we? This one, I think we forgot because we had just
Well, if I didn't,
we had a Tarkovsky moment.
Yeah, I boomered. I boomered something. So we talked for 5 minutes, and I was like, "Shit, Dan, there's no audio on your side." But,
it's all good.
Anyways, thank you for joining, everybody. A bunch of links in the description. Check those out. Leave a comment. What do you think about Stalker? Are you a mouth-breathing normie like the guy we just watched? Or are you like Cineas? Are you enlightened people like Dan and I?
Also, share this with your friends who are maybe fans of the film or critics of the film. Or
because I'd love to get some feedback.
Yeah, like let us know, dude. Make some video responses maybe. Shit on our take. Love our take. Steal our takes. It's all up for
it's all
whatever
part
you need.
And parcel on the wonderful world of YouTube. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Goodbye.